Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive alien ship. The walls were made of some kind of metal he had never seen before. They glowed with a soft blue light that hurt his eyes. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Everything about this place was designed to make humans feel small and weak. Beside him, Ambassador Lisa Carter tried to look calm. Her hands were folded in front of her, but Jake could see them shaking slightly. They had both known this day would come. The aliens had been watching Earth for months. Now they wanted to talk. The Zephyrian Empire ruled half the galaxy. Everyone knew their name. Everyone feared them. They had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. No one had ever beaten them in a war. No one had even tried to fight back for the last 1,000 years. Admiral Kethfer entered the room like he owned everything in it. He was tall, even taller than Jake, and his skin was a dark green color. His eyes were bright yellow and seemed to glow in the strange light. He wore a uniform covered in medals and symbols that Jake did not understand. Behind him walked 6 other aliens, all dressed the same way. The Admiral looked at Jake and Lisa like they were insects. He did not offer them chairs. He did not ask if they needed anything. He just started talking. I am Admiral Kethfer of the Eternal Dominion. I speak for the Zephyrian Empire. You will listen to our terms. His voice was deep and cold. When he spoke, it sounded like rocks grinding together. Jake had heard recordings of Zephyrian speech before, but hearing it in person was different. It made his skin crawl. Your species has developed faster than light travel, the Admiral continued. This makes you a concern for the Empire. We have studied your world. We have watched your people. You are primitive. You are weak. But you have ships that can travel between stars. One of the other aliens stepped forward. This one was smaller and had lighter green skin. She carried a device that projected images in the air between them. The images showed Earth from space. Then they showed human cities. Then they showed human spaceships. Your largest warships are smaller than our transport vessels, the female alien said. Her voice was higher than the Admiral's, but just as cold. Your total fleet numbers 193 ships. Our empire commands 52,000 warships. You have no orbital defense platforms, no shield generators, no plasma cannons. The images changed to show Zephyrian ships. They were huge. Jake had seen pictures of them before, but these images showed details that made his stomach drop. The smallest Zephyrian destroyer was 3 times bigger than Earth's largest battleship. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with one shot. Admiral Kethfer smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. The Empire offers you a choice. You may surrender now and become a client species. You will give us all your ships. You will stop building new ones. You will accept our protection. In return, we will allow your people to live. Lisa Carter finally spoke. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. And if we refuse? The Admiral's smile grew wider. Then we will take what we want anyway. But your people will not survive to see it. The other aliens began to make noise. At first, Jake thought they were talking to each other in their own language. Then he realized they were laughing. They were actually laughing at the idea that humans might refuse. You cannot be serious, one of them said between laughs. You have been in space for 50 years. We have ruled the galaxy for 3,000. You are children playing with toys. Another alien joined in. Their ships are made of metal and ceramic. Ours are made of crystallized neutronium. They use chemical rockets for thrust. We use gravity wells. It would be like ants declaring war on giants. The laughter grew louder. Even Admiral Kethfer seemed amused. Perhaps you need time to understand your situation. Let me explain it more clearly. The images in the air changed again. This time they showed battles, Zephyrian fleets destroying other alien races, planets burning, cities crumbling to dust, entire species wiping out in days. The hegemony of worlds tried to resist us 800 years ago. They had technology almost as advanced as ours. They lasted 6 months. The Crystalline Confederation was even stronger. They lasted 4 months. The Machine Collective had ships that could repair themselves and multiply during battle. They lasted 2 months. Jake watched the images of destruction. He had seen these recordings before in Earth's military files. But seeing them here, in this place, with these aliens laughing around him, made them feel more real. Each species thought they were special, the Admiral continued. Each one believed they had advantages we did not expect. Each one was wrong. You are not special, humans. You are not different. You are simply the next species to be absorbed into the Empire. The laughter stopped. The room became very quiet. All the aliens were looking at Jake and Lisa, waiting for their answer. Lisa looked at Jake. They had talked about this moment many times during the journey to this ship. Earth's government had given them permission to negotiate, but they had also given them permission to refuse. Jake stepped forward. He looked directly at Admiral Kethfer. The alien was at least 2 feet taller than him, but Jake did not look away. "We appreciate your offer," Jake said. His voice was calm and clear, "but our answer is no." The silence in the room was complete. The aliens stared at him like he had just said something impossible. "No." Admiral Kethfer repeated the word slowly, like he was not sure he had heard correctly. "That's right. No. We will not surrender. We will not give you our ships. We will not accept your protection. Earth remains free." The laughter started again, but this time it was different. It was sharper, meaner. The aliens were not just amused anymore. They were shocked that these primitive humans would dare to refuse them. "This is madness," one of them said. "You cannot possibly believe you can fight us." Jake shrugged. "We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We're not about to stop now, just because you showed up." Admiral Kethfer's expression changed. The amusement was gone. Now he looked angry. "You would choose death over submission. We choose freedom over slavery," Lisa said. "Every time." The Admiral stood up straighter. He towered over both humans. "Very well. The Empire is merciful. We will give you 30 standard days to reconsider. Return to your world. Talk to your leaders. Think about what you are choosing." He gestured to the other aliens. They began to leave the room, but the Admiral stopped at the doorway and looked back. "When those 30 days are over, we will return. If your answer is still no, we will show you why every other species in the galaxy bows to the Zephyrian Empire." Jake and Lisa were escorted back to their small shuttle. As they flew away from the massive alien ship, Lisa finally let her hands shake. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting for their report. Billions of people were depending on what they had said in that room. "I think we made the only choice we could live with," he said. "Now we have 30 days to figure out how to back it up." The shuttle touched down on Earth 3 days later. Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter walked down the ramp to find a crowd of reporters waiting. Camera crews pushed forward. Microphones were shoved in their faces. Everyone wanted to know what the aliens had said. "No comment right now," Lisa told them. "We need to report to the government first." Jake said nothing. He just walked through the crowd with his head down. The weight of what they had done pressed on his shoulders. In 27 days, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would return to Earth, and they would be angry. The emergency session of Earth's United Parliament was held that same evening. President Amy Rodriguez sat at the head of the table. Around her were the leaders of every major nation on Earth. Also present were Admiral Ben Taylor, the head of Earth's defense fleet, and Dr. Susan Walsh from the Terra Research Institute. Lisa gave her report first. She spoke calmly and clearly about everything that had happened on the alien ship. When she finished, The room was silent for a long moment. "So they're giving us 30 days?" President Rodriguez said finally. 27 now, Jake corrected. "And if we don't surrender, they'll destroy us." "That's what they said." Admiral Taylor leaned forward. "How many ships did they say they have?" 52,000, Lisa replied. "Their smallest destroyer is bigger than our largest battleship." Dr. Walsh had been taking notes. Now she looked up from her tablet. "We need to talk about our options." "What options?" asked the representative from the European Union. "We have 200 ships. They have 50,000. The math is simple." "The math is never simple when humans are involved," Dr. Walsh said. She stood up and walked to the large screen at the front of the room. "May I?" President Rodriguez nodded. Dr. Walsh activated the screen and began showing images of human military technology. "The aliens are right about our technology being primitive," she said, "but they're wrong about what that means. Every war in human history has been won by someone who used their tools in ways the enemy didn't expect." She showed pictures of ancient battles. Soldiers with spears defeating soldiers with swords. Cavalry defeating infantry. Airplanes defeating ships. Technology alone has never determined the outcome of a war. Strategy, tactics, and willingness to adapt, those are what win wars. And humans have been adapting to new ways of fighting for thousands of years. Admiral Taylor looked skeptical. "But we're talking about aliens who have been conquering the galaxy for 3,000 years. They must know every trick there is." "Do they?" Dr. Walsh asked. "According to our intelligence, the Zephyrian Empire hasn't fought a real war in over 800 years. Every species they've encountered in the last millennium has surrendered without fighting. They've become used to easy victories." She switched to a new set of images. These showed human ships and weapons. "Our technology may be primitive, but it's also unpredictable. Alien races have been using the same basic weapon and ship designs for thousands of years. They fight the same way every time, but humans have never stopped innovating." Jake found himself leaning forward. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that we don't try to fight them the way they expect to be fought. No big fleet battles. No formal military engagements. We fight like humans have always fought when facing a superior enemy." "Guerrilla warfare," Admiral Taylor said slowly. "Exactly. Hit and run attacks. Sabotage, ambushes. Make them fight on our terms, not theirs." The room erupted in discussion. Some representatives thought it was suicide. Others thought it might be their only chance. The argument went on for hours. Finally, President Rodriguez called for quiet. "Dr. Walsh, how long would we need to prepare?" "We have 27 days. It's not much time, but it might be enough if we start right now." "What would we need to do?" Dr. Walsh had obviously been thinking about this for a while. "First, we need to modify our ships, make them faster and harder to detect. Second, we need new weapons designed specifically to fight alien technology. Third, we need to train our crews in tactics they've never seen before." Lieutenant Colonel Nick Barnes had been quiet during the meeting. Now he spoke up. "What about civilian ships? Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels? There are thousands of them." "What about them?" Admiral Taylor asked. "We convert them, put weapons on them, turn them into warships. The aliens won't expect civilian vessels to attack them." Dr. Walsh nodded enthusiastically. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Unexpected approaches, unconventional tactics." President Rodriguez looked around the room. "We need a vote. All in favor of rejecting the alien ultimatum and preparing for war." Hands went up around the table. "Not all of them, but enough." "Motion carried," the president said. "God help us all." The next morning, the largest mobilization in human history began. Every shipyard on Earth and in the colonies started working around the clock. Military engineers worked alongside civilian mechanics to install weapons on cargo ships. Miners found themselves training to pilot attack craft. Engineer Katie Miller led a team working on new weapon designs. She had studied the recordings of Zephyrian ships and noticed something interesting. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, but they might not be prepared for weapons that worked differently. "What if we don't try to punch through their shields?" she asked her team. "What if we go around them?" Her first design was a mine that could phase through shield frequencies. Her second was a missile that could split into 1,000 tiny pieces right before impact. Her third was a plasma charge that could be teleported directly inside enemy ships. Commander Alex Ross was working on a different problem. How do you hide a fleet from enemies who have been conquering the galaxy for thousands of years? His solution was simple. Don't hide the fleet. Hide individual ships. Scatter them across the solar system. Make the aliens come looking for them one at a time. It's like guerrilla warfare in space, he explained to his officers. We don't hold territory. We don't protect fixed positions. We make them chase ghosts. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was working with Admiral Taylor to train their crews. Human military doctrine had always been about fighting other humans. Now they needed to learn how to fight aliens. "Forget everything you know about space combat," Morrison told a group of ship captains. "The aliens expect us to line up our ships and shoot at each other like gentlemen. We're going to ram them, board them, and blow ourselves up next to them if we have to." The training was brutal. Pilots learned to fly their ships like fighter planes instead of battleships. Marines practiced boarding actions in zero gravity. Engineers learned to overload reactors on command. Word of the preparations spread throughout human space. Volunteers came from every colony, every station, every settlement. They brought their own ships, their own weapons, their own ideas about how to fight. Dr. Walsh coordinated everything from a command center in Geneva. Wall-sized screens showed the progress of modifications, the movement of ships, the development of new weapons. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. "How are we doing?" President Rodriguez asked during one of her daily visits. "Better than expected," Dr. Walsh replied. "We've converted over 3,000 civilian ships into combat vessels. Our new weapons are testing well, and morale is surprisingly high. Surprisingly, people are scared, but they're also angry. The aliens made a mistake when they laughed at us. Humans don't like being laughed at." On the 20th day, long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The aliens were coming back early, probably to check on human preparations. The scout ship that approached Earth sent back a report that made Admiral Kethfer frown. The humans were definitely preparing for something. There were ships moving everywhere. Construction was happening on every space station. But it all looked so primitive and disorganized. "They're like ants," one of his officers reported, "running around in circles, building things that make no sense." Admiral Kethfer studied the images. Human ships with strange new attachments, cargo vessels that appeared to have weapon mounts, mining platforms that seemed to be moving toward strategic positions. "It's pathetic," he decided. "They're actually going to try to fight us with converted garbage haulers and mining equipment." The report was sent back to the Zephyrian Empire. Military analysts studied it and agreed with the Admiral's assessment. The humans were clearly desperate. They were trying to turn civilian ships into warships. It would never work. Back on Earth, the final preparations were being made. Dr. Walsh's new weapons were loaded onto ships throughout the fleet. Commander Ross's scattered deployment was nearly complete. Captain Morrison's intensive training program had turned cargo pilots into warriors, with 7 days left. President Rodriguez addressed the people of Earth and the colonies. Her speech was broadcast to every human settlement in space. "In 7 days, the Zephyrian Empire will return." She said, "They expect us to surrender. They expect us to bow down and accept slavery. They are wrong." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "We are human. We have never accepted defeat when freedom was at stake. We have never surrendered when we could still fight, and we will not start now." The speech ended with 8 words that would be remembered throughout human history. "Let them come. We'll show them what humans do." The Zephyrian fleet arrived exactly 30 days after the ultimatum was given. 300 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They moved in perfect formation, like a parade of death. Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and studied the tactical display. The human response was exactly what he expected. A few dozen ships were scattered around Earth's moon. Some orbital platforms hung in space near the planet. It was a pathetic defense for a species about to be conquered. "Begin the broadcast," he ordered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings tuned in to watch the destruction of humanity. The Zephyrian Empire always broadcasts their conquests. It served as a reminder to other species of what happened to those who defied them. "Citizens of the Empire," Admiral Kethfer said into the camera, "today you will witness the fate of the species that dared to refuse our generous offer. Let this be a lesson to any who consider rebellion." On Earth, President Rodriguez and her staff watched the alien fleet approach. The ships were massive beyond anything humans had ever built. Each one could probably destroy a city with a single shot. "Are our people in position?" she asked Admiral Taylor. "All scattered units report." "Ready?" he replied. "Captain Morrison is leading the main force near the moon, and the secret weapons deployed and waiting." President Rodriguez nodded. She had done everything she could. Now it was up to the men and women in space to either save humanity or die. Trying. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Frontier, the largest ship in Earth's hastily assembled fleet. It was barely half the size of the smallest Zephyrian destroyer, but it was the best humanity could build. Around him, his officers checked their systems one last time. The ship had been built in just 3 weeks, using parts from a dozen different vessels. By any normal standard, it should not even be able to fly. But humans had never been normal. "Enemy fleet is approaching weapons range," reported Lieutenant Pete Williams from the sensor station. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. 300 confirmed. Maybe more behind them. Morrison did the math in his head. 300 alien ships against 47 human vessels. Those were terrible odds by any reasonable measure. "Signal the fleet," he said. "Begin Phase 1. The human ships began to move, but instead of forming a defensive line like the aliens expected, they scattered in all directions. Some headed for the asteroid belt, others dove toward the sun. A few actually charged straight at the alien fleet. Admiral Kethfer watched this with amusement. "They're running away before the battle even starts. How disappointing." But his tactical officer looked confused. "Sir, some of them are actually coming toward us. Suicide runs. Desperate creatures often choose death over surrender." The first human ship to reach the Zephyrian fleet was a converted cargo hauler called the Lucky Strike. Commander Jenny Brooks had volunteered for what everyone knew was a one-way mission. The alien ships opened fire when she got close. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled space around her ship. The Lucky Strike's shields held for exactly 30 seconds before failing. But Jenny was not trying to survive. She was trying to get close enough to deliver her cargo. The Lucky Strike exploded in a brilliant flash of light, but it was not a normal explosion. Dr. Walsh's new phase pulse mine detonated inside the alien ship's shield grid. The destroyer, Crushing Fist, suffered massive damage and began to drift out of formation. "What just happened?" Admiral Kethfer demanded. "Unknown weapon type," his tactical officer reported. "The explosion occurred inside our shields. More human ships were approaching now. The aliens fired everything they had, destroying most of them before they could get close. But a few made it through. Each time a human ship exploded, it took an alien vessel with it. or damaged it badly enough to take it out of the fight. "This is madness," one of the alien officers said. "They're killing themselves just to hurt us." "Primitive thinking," Admiral Kethfer replied. "They don't understand the value of their own lives." But even he was starting to feel uncomfortable. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They were not trying to win a traditional battle. They were trying to cause as much damage as possible before dying. Commander Ross led the second wave of attacks. His ships came from the asteroid belt, using the rocks as cover. They had been waiting there for hours, engines cold, completely invisible to alien sensors. The aliens detected them only when they opened fire. But these were not suicide runs. These ships were armed with Katie Miller's new plasma missiles. The missiles split apart just before hitting their targets. Instead of one large projectile, each ship fired 1,000 tiny ones. The alien point defense systems could not track them all. Explosions blossomed across the Zephyrian fleet. 3 more destroyers were heavily damaged. 1 light cruiser lost its main engines and began spinning out of control. "Return fire," Admiral Kethfer ordered. The alien fleet turned toward the asteroid belt and unleashed a devastating barrage. Entire asteroids were vaporized. The space around them lit up like a star. But when the firing stopped, more human ships appeared from different directions. They had been hiding behind other asteroids, using the alien barrage as cover to change positions. "How many ships do they have?" the Admiral asked. "Unknown," his tactical officer replied. "Our sensors are having difficulty getting accurate counts." The truth was that humans had learned to use their own weakness as a strength. Their ships were so small and primitive that they barely registered on alien sensors. A human destroyer looked like debris to Zephyrian equipment. The battle continued for 3 hours. Human ships appeared from nowhere, attacked, and either escaped or died trying. The aliens destroyed dozens of them, but they kept coming. Sergeant Tony Clark led a boarding party onto a damaged alien cruiser. His Marines used cutting tools to break through the hull in a place where the shields had failed. They fought their way through corridors designed for beings twice their size. The aliens had never faced borders before. In thousands of years of conquest, no species had ever been crazy enough to try to capture their ships during battle. Clark's team reached the engine room and planted explosives. They did not try to escape. When the charges went off, the cruiser's reactor exploded, taking 2 nearby destroyers with it. "They're inside our ships," an alien captain reported over the communication system. "How is that possible?" Admiral Kethfer demanded. "They're cutting through our hulls and fighting inside our vessels." The Admiral looked at his tactical display. His fleet had started with 300 ships. Now he was down to 240, and the humans were still fighting. More concerning was the fact that his ships were running low on ammunition. Zephyrian military doctrine called for quick, decisive battles. They were not equipped for a long fight against an enemy that refused to die. "Signal the second wave," he ordered. 100 more Zephyrian ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Fresh vessels with full weapons and eager crews. Surely this would be enough to finish the stubborn humans. But Captain Morrison had been waiting for this moment. Hidden behind Earth's moon was the real human fleet, not the converted cargo ships and desperate volunteers who had been fighting for the last 3 hours. This was Earth's actual military. 40 warships dropped their stealth systems and opened fire simultaneously. They had been waiting in perfect position, watching the aliens. Focus on the decoy forces. The second wave of alien ships was caught completely off guard. They had been expecting to join an easy mop-up operation. Instead, they flew directly into a carefully prepared ambush. Katie Miller's teleportation bombs appeared inside a dozen alien ships at once. The weapons had been placed by the boarding teams during the earlier fighting. Now they detonated simultaneously, crippling the fresh reinforcements before they could even return fire. Admiral Kethver watched his perfect formation dissolve into chaos. Human ships were everywhere. Some were ramming his vessels. Others were boarding them. Still others were using weapons he had never seen before. All ships, fall back to defensive formation, he ordered. But it was too late for organized retreat. The battle had become a wild melee. Human and alien ships were so mixed together that the aliens could not use their heaviest weapons without hitting their own forces. Commander Ross saw his chance. He led his surviving ships in a direct assault on the Admiral's flagship, the Eternal. Dominion was the largest ship in the alien fleet, but it was also the most important target. The alien flagship's defenses were incredible. Point defense guns destroyed most of the attacking human ships before they could get close, but a few made it through. Ross's own ship, the Freedom Fighter, was hit by 3 plasma bolts on its final approach. The hull was melting. The engines were failing, but he was close enough. For Earth, he shouted as he rammed his ship into the Eternal. Dominion's main weapon array. The explosion was visible from Earth. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but the alien flagship's main guns were offline. Admiral Kethver found himself on an auxiliary bridge, his main command center destroyed. Around him, his officers looked shocked and frightened. They had never seen anything like this battle. "Status report," he demanded. 200 ships lost or disabled, his tactical officer replied. "The humans have taken severe losses as well, but they're still fighting." The Admiral looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was down too, maybe 30 ships. But those 30 ships were still attacking, still fighting, still refusing to surrender, even though they were clearly doomed. "They fight like demons," he whispered, repeating the words he had spoken weeks ago. The battle finally ended when the last human ship, a converted mining vessel called the Iron Will, rammed into an alien cruiser. Both ships were destroyed in the collision. Space around Earth was filled with debris from both fleets. The aliens had won, technically. They still had over 100 ships remaining, but it was not the easy victory they had expected. Admiral Kethver looked at the wreckage and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: doubt. The humans had lost, but they had made the aliens pay a terrible price. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through." President Rodriguez appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but not defeated. Behind her, Admiral Taylor and Dr. Walsh stood with expressions of grim determination. "Admiral," she said calmly, "I believe you have something to say to us." The Admiral straightened up. Despite everything that had happened, the humans had still lost. He still had superior numbers. "You have fought bravely, but uselessly. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." President Rodriguez smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Admiral, I think you misunderstood something. This wasn't our main fleet. This was just the first test." The Admiral felt his blood turn cold. "What? You've been fighting our defense force, local militia, volunteers, and converted civilian ships? Our actual military has been watching from the outer system, studying your tactics and weaknesses." On cue, new contacts appeared on the alien sensors. Hundreds of them. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel all around the solar system. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. "Thank you for the demonstration. We learned quite a lot about how your ships work and how your crews think. Now we're ready for the real battle." Admiral Kethver stared at the display in horror. The humans had been using the battle as a training exercise. They had sacrificed hundreds of their own people just to learn how to fight more effectively. "How many ships do you have?" he asked in a whisper. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system from his new command ship. "Enough." The Admiral's final transmission, broadcast live across the galaxy, carried a tone of disbelief that would haunt the Zephyrian Empire for years to come. "They fight like demons. How do we defeat an enemy that views death as just another weapon. The news of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian fleet had been destroyed. The impossible had happened. Someone had fought back and won. In the capital city of the Zephyrian Empire, Supreme Commander Vaxtel received the report in his private chambers. He read it 3 times before he could believe what it said. 300 ships lost to a species that had been in space for only 50 years. "Bring me Admiral Kethfer," he ordered his aide. "Sir, Admiral Kethfer was killed when his flagship was destroyed." The Supreme Commander closed his eyes. Kethfer had been one of his best officers, a veteran of dozens of campaigns. If he could not handle primitive humans, what did that say about this new enemy? "Assemble the 5th Armada," he said finally. 10,000 ships. We will crush these humans completely." But the humans were no longer waiting at Earth for the next attack. Within days of their victory, Captain Morrison led the first human raid deep into Zephyrian space. His target was a supply depot 300 light-years from Earth. The alien base had never been attacked. Why would it be? No enemy had penetrated this far into Zephyrian territory in over 1,000 years. The defenses were minimal. The garrison was small. Morrison's task force of 50 ships appeared without warning. They struck fast and hard, destroying fuel tankers and ammunition storage facilities. By the time local reinforcements arrived, the humans were gone, but they left behind something that terrified the aliens more than the destruction itself. They left behind recordings. The videos showed human soldiers placing explosives in the fuel depot. But these soldiers were not wearing the blue uniforms of Earth's military. They were wearing Zephyrian armor and equipment. Where did they get our technology? Supreme Commander Vaxtel demanded. His intelligence chief, a thin alien named Sektar, studied the images carefully. They must have salvaged it from the wreckage at Earth. But sir, this suggests they've learned to operate our equipment. In a matter of weeks, humans appeared to be extremely adaptable. More raids followed. Human ships attacked mining facilities, communication relays, and transport routes. Each strike was perfectly planned and flawlessly executed. The humans hit targets that seemed impossible to reach, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Jenny Brooks, who had survived her supposed suicide mission by ejecting in an escape pod, now led a special unit of human pirates. They used captured Zephyrian ships to move freely through alien space. The key, she explained to her crew, is to think like them. Arrogant, overconfident. They see one of their own ships approaching. They assume it's friendly. Her greatest success came when she captured an entire Zephyrian supply convoy. 12 massive cargo ships filled with weapons, armor, and advanced technology. Instead of destroying them, she took them back to human space. Dr. Walsh studied the captured technology with the enthusiasm of a child in a toy store. Alien plasma weapons, shield generators, faster-than-light communication systems. Each piece of equipment was reverse-engineered and improved. Their technology is actually quite simple, she reported to President Rodriguez. Effective, but simple. They've been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. They never innovated because they never needed to. Can we copy it? Better, we can improve it. The first human ships equipped with hybrid technology were a shock to the Zephyrian military. They moved like human vessels, fast and unpredictable. But they hit like alien warships, with weapons that could punch through any defense. Lieutenant Pete Williams commanded one of these new ships, the Revenge. It was built around a human hull, but powered by a captured Zephyrian reactor. The weapons were a combination of both technologies, creating something entirely new. It's like having the best of both worlds, he told his crew. Human creativity with alien power. The Revenge and ships like it began hunting Zephyrian patrols throughout the border regions. They would appear without warning, destroy everything in sight, and disappear before help could arrive. The psychological effect on the alien military was devastating. Veteran officers who had served for centuries without seeing real combat found themselves jumping at shadows. Every patrol became a potential death sentence. Admiral Zexavel commanded the border defense fleet. He had been ordered to stop the human raids, but his ships were being picked off one by one. The humans seemed to know exactly where his patrols would be and when they would be there. "How do they keep finding us?" he asked his intelligence officer during a staff meeting. "Unknown, sir. Our communication channels are secure. Our patrol routes are classified. But the humans had an advantage the aliens never suspected. Among the prisoners taken during the raids were several Zephyrian communication technicians. Under gentle questioning by human intelligence officers, they had revealed the encryption keys used by their military. Commander Alex Ross, now promoted to general, coordinated the intelligence operation from a hidden base in an asteroid field. Human codebreakers worked around the clock to intercept and decode alien messages. "We know where every Zephyrian ship is going before they get there," he reported to Admiral Taylor. "We can hit them when they're most vulnerable." The raids continued. For months. Each one was more daring than the last. Human forces struck deeper and deeper into Zephyrian territory. Supply lines were cut. Communications were disrupted. Entire star systems were left isolated and defenseless. But the humans were not just destroying things. They were also liberating people. The first liberated world was Kepler Prime, a planet that had been conquered by the Zephyrians 200 years earlier. The native species, called the Keplers, had been enslaved and forced to work in the mines. Captain Morrison led the liberation force personally. His ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in the middle of the planetary defense grid. The Zephyrian garrison had been expecting a supply convoy. Instead, they got a battle fleet. The fight was over in 6 hours. The orbital defense platforms were destroyed. The garrison was wiped out. And for the first time in 2 centuries, the Kepler people were free. The liberated aliens were suspicious at first. Every species in the galaxy knew that humans were supposed to be primitive and weak. How could they have defeated the mighty Zephyrian Empire? Elder Tikvin, the leader of the Kepler resistance movement, met with Captain Morrison after the battle. "Why did you come here?" he asked. "What do you want from us?" Morrison's answer was simple. "We want you to be free. That's all. But surely you expect something in return. Tribute, resources, military service." Morrison shook his head. "We're not conquerors. We're liberators. The galaxy has had enough of empires." Word of the liberation spread quickly. Other enslaved species began to hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would come for them too. The hegemony of worlds. Longtime rivals of the Zephyrian Empire watched these developments with great interest. They had been fighting a cold war with the Zephyrians for centuries, never quite strong enough to challenge them directly. Ambassador Kretox of the hegemony requested a secret meeting with human representatives. It was held on a neutral space station far from both territories. Lisa Carter, now promoted to Secretary of State, led the human delegation. "We have a proposal," Ambassador Kretox said, without preamble. "The hegemony and humanity share a common enemy. Perhaps we could share intelligence and resources." Lisa studied the alien carefully. The hegemony had a reputation for being only slightly less ruthless than the Zephyr, but they had never enslaved entire species or committed genocide. "What exactly are you offering?" she asked. "Star charts, intelligence on Zephyrian fleet movements, advanced technology, and political support if you need it. In exchange for," continued, "pressure on our mutual enemy, and perhaps, when this war is over, a favorable trade agreement." Lisa smiled. "I think we can work something out." The alliance between humanity and the hegemony was announced 6 months later. Suddenly, the humans had access to intelligence networks that spanned half the galaxy. They learned about secret Zephyrian bases, hidden fleets, and emergency supply depots. But more importantly, they learned that the Zephyrian Empire was not as strong as it appeared. The constant raids had stretched their military thin. Morale was collapsing. Some sectors were in open rebellion. General Ross planned the most ambitious operation yet. Instead of hitting random targets, the humans would strike at the heart of Zephyrian power. They would attack the shipyards of Vega Prime, where most of the alien fleet was built. The operation required perfect timing. 3 separate human fleets would hit 3 different targets simultaneously. While the aliens were responding to the diversions, the main force would destroy the shipyards. Engineer Katie Miller had developed a new weapon specifically for this mission. The quantum disruptor bomb could tear apart the molecular bonds that held matter together. One bomb could destroy an entire space station. "Are you sure this will work?" Admiral Taylor asked during the final briefing. "The theory is sound," Miller replied, "but we've never tested it on anything this large." "No pressure then," General Ross said with a grin. The attack began at 0600 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The first diversion fleet, led by Commander Williams, hit a supply depot in the Alpha Centauri sector. The second fleet attacked a communication relay near Rigel. Both strikes were successful, drawing Zephyrian reinforcements away from their core systems. Captain Morrison led the main assault on Vega Prime. His fleet of 200 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, just outside the system's detection grid. They approached using a technique human pilots called running silent, minimal power. No communications, engines cold. The shipyards were massive. Orbital factories that could build a dozen warships at once. Dry docks that held partially completed dreadnoughts. Fuel refineries that supplied the entire sector. Deploy the quantum disruptors. Morrison ordered. 20 small human ships accelerated toward the shipyards. Each one carried a single bomb. The aliens detected them when they were halfway to their targets, but it was too late to stop them all. The explosions were unlike anything ever seen before. Entire space stations simply ceased to exist. Matter became energy, became nothing. In 30 seconds, the industrial heart of the Zephyrian Empire was gone. The psychological impact was even greater than the physical damage. The shipyards had been considered invulnerable. They were defended by orbital fortresses and protected by massive fleets. If the humans could destroy them, nowhere was safe. Supreme Commander Vaxtel received the report while meeting with his senior staff. He read it twice, then threw the tablet across the room. "How?" he screamed. "How did primitives with chemical rockets destroy our most heavily defended installation?" His aide, trembling with fear, retrieved the tablet. "Sir, our intelligence suggests they have formed an alliance with the hegemony of worlds. The hegemony wouldn't dare attack us directly. No, sir, but they might provide intelligence and technology to someone else." The Supreme Commander sank into his chair. For the first time in his long career, he was beginning to understand what his enemies felt: fear, desperation, the certainty that defeat was inevitable. "Recall the Fifth Armada," he said quietly. "Sir, bring them back. Cancel the attack on Earth. We need those ships to defend our core systems." His staff exchanged glances. Canceling an attack was not something the Zephyrian Empire did, ever. "Sir, what about our reputation? What will other species think if we retreat?" Supreme Commander Vaxtel looked at him with tired eyes. "They'll think we're smart enough to know when we're beaten." But it was already too late. The humans were no longer content to play defense. They had tasted victory, and they wanted more. Captain Morrison sent a message to the Zephyrian High Command. It was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every alien in the Empire would hear it. "You came to our world and demanded our surrender. You laughed when we refused. You thought we were weak because we were young. You were wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We are coming for you. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to free every species you have enslaved and to end your empire of fear. You have 30 days to begin releasing your slaves and withdrawing from conquered worlds. After that, we stop asking nicely." The message ended with 8 words that would echo through alien nightmares for generations. This is what happens when humans get angry. 2 years after the war began, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Liberation, watching the Zephyrian home system grow larger on the main screen. Behind him stretched the largest human fleet ever assembled. 3,000 ships, including vessels from dozens of liberated worlds. The journey to this moment had been long and bloody. Human forces had fought their way through half the galaxy, freeing enslaved species and destroying alien military bases. The Zephyrian Empire, once master of 50,000 star systems, now controlled fewer than 100. "Final approach to Zephyr Prime," reported Navigator Lisa Chen from her station. Morrison nodded. After 2 years of fighting, it would all end here. The alien homeworld lay ahead, defended by the last remnants of their once mighty fleet. Admiral Ben Taylor contacted him from the command ship, Humanity's Pride. "Jake, our scouts report the alien defenses are stronger than expected. They've pulled back everything they have left." "How many ships?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 800? Plus orbital fortresses and planetary defense systems." Morrison studied the tactical display. The aliens still had significant firepower, but they were fighting a defensive battle now, protecting their home instead of conquering others. That changed everything. "Signal the fleet," he said. "Begin the final assault." On the alien planet below, Supreme Commander Vaxtal watched the human fleet approach with a mixture of fear and disbelief. 2 years ago, these primitives had been nothing more than an amusing annoyance. Now they were at the gates of the Empire's capital. "All defense platforms are online," reported his tactical officer. "Planetary shields at maximum power. And our fleet, 812 ships. Admiral Kethver's son, Commander Nextol, is leading the space defense." Vaxtal closed his eyes. Young Nextol had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. He wanted to avenge his father's death and restore honor to his family name. "Tell the commander he has permission to engage," Vaxtal said quietly. The space battle began at dawn over Zephyr Prime. The alien ships rose from their hiding places among the moons and attacked the human fleet with desperate fury. These were not the arrogant conquerors who had laughed at Earth's defiance. These were cornered animals fighting for their lives. Commander Nextol led the charge personally, his flagship directing plasma fire at the human command ships. For a moment, it seemed like the old Zephyrian Empire might have one last victory, but the humans had learned too much during their 2-year campaign. They scattered and regrouped, using tactics the aliens had never seen before. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, they flowed around it like water. General Ross, commanding from his ship the Vengeance, coordinated the human response. "All units, execute maneuver, Gamma 7. Hit them from all sides." Human ships appeared above, below, and beside the alien formation. The Zephyrians found themselves surrounded by enemies who moved like ghosts and struck like lightning. Engineer Katie Miller's latest weapons turned the battle into a slaughter. Her new phase cannons could fire through solid matter, hitting targets hiding behind cover. Her quantum torpedoes could track enemies through hyperspace, making escape impossible. Commander Nextol watched his fleet dissolve around him. In 30 minutes, he lost half his ships. The humans were not just defeating them, they were destroying them with contemptuous ease. "All ships, fall back to the planetary defense grid," he ordered. But there was nowhere to run. Human ships were everywhere, appearing from directions that should have been impossible. They fought with the fury of a species that had been pushed too far. Captain Morrison led the final assault personally. His ship, the Liberation, punched through the alien defensive line and headed straight for the planet. Behind him came a wave of human vessels, each one carrying troops for the final invasion. The orbital defense platforms opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space around the human ships. But the humans had learned to fight through defenses that once seemed impenetrable. "Quantum disruptors armed and ready," reported Lieutenant Williams from the weapons station. "Fire," Morrison ordered. The orbital fortresses simply vanished. One moment they were there, bristling with weapons and shields. The next moment they were nothing but expanding clouds of particles. Commander Nextul's ship was caught in the blast wave from a destroyed platform. His engines failed. His weapons went offline. He drifted helplessly as human ships surrounded him. Morrison's voice came over the communication system. "Commander, you have fought bravely. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated with honor." Nixtul looked around his damaged bridge. His officers were wounded, but alive. His ship was crippled but not destroyed. He could order a final suicidal attack, or he could accept defeat. For the first time in Zephyrian history, a fleet commander chose surrender over death. "I surrender," he said quietly. "Please show mercy to my people." The space battle was over, but the war would not end until the planetary government surrendered as well. Supreme Commander Vaxtel stood in his command center beneath the capital city, watching reports pour in from around the planet. Human landing craft were touching down at dozens of locations. Alien defense forces were surrendering without a fight. His aide approached nervously. "Sir, the humans are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss surrender terms." Vaxtal laughed bitterly. "How the mighty have fallen. Very well. Arrange the meeting." The surrender ceremony was held in the same chamber where Admiral Kethver had once dictated terms to humanity. But now the roles were completely reversed. It was aliens who stood before human judges, begging for mercy. General Ross presided over the tribunal. Beside him sat Captain Morrison, Admiral Taylor, and Ambassador Carter. They looked at the defeated alien commander with a mixture of pity and steel. "Supreme Commander Vaxtel," Ross began, "you are here to surrender the Empire unconditionally." The old alien bowed his head. "I am." "Your terms are simple," Morrison said. "Complete disarmament of all military forces, release of every enslaved species in your territory, reparations to be paid to the worlds you conquered, and a guarantee that your people will never again raise weapons against another species." Vaxtel listened to the demands with growing relief. He had expected execution or enslavement. Instead, the humans were offering something almost unthinkable, a chance to live. "And if we agree to these terms," he asked. Ambassador Carter spoke for the first time, "then your people will be free to rebuild their civilization. Without armies, without conquest, but free. You will not enslave us. You will not take revenge for our crimes." General Ross leaned forward. "We're not you, Supreme Commander. We don't conquer for pleasure or rule through fear. We fought this war to free the oppressed, not to become oppressors ourselves." The alien looked confused. "Then what do you want, Captain?" Morrison stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the alien city below. Human and alien soldiers were working together to distribute food and medical supplies to civilians. "We want peace," he said simply. "We want a galaxy where every species can live free from fear. We want children to grow up without wondering if conquering armies will destroy their worlds." He turned back to face the Supreme Commander. "Your empire ruled through strength. It conquered through terror. It lasted 3,000 years. By making everyone afraid. We're going to try something different." "What?" "We're going to rule through hope." The formal surrender was signed that evening. Supreme Commander Vaxel's signature ended the longest-lasting empire in galactic history. The Zephyrian Age was over, but something new was beginning. Within weeks, representatives from dozens of liberated worlds arrived at Earth. They came to thank humanity for their freedom and to discuss the future. The old empire was dead. What would replace it? President Rodriguez addressed the gathering in the same chamber where she had once prepared for war. "We have a choice," she told the assembled delegates. "We can repeat the mistakes of the past, or we can build something better. We can create an alliance based on cooperation instead of conquest. A federation of free peoples working together for the common good." The Galactic Liberation Alliance was formed 6 months later. Every species that had been freed from Zeph rule was invited to join. Even former enemy races were welcomed. As long as they renounced conquest and agreed to protect the weak, the Zephyrians themselves were among the first to join. Their new government, led by Commander Nextul, wanted to atone for the crimes of their ancestors. "We were wrong," he admitted during his first speech to the Alliance Council. "We thought strength meant domination. We thought power meant the right to rule others. The humans have shown us a different way." Dr. Walsh was appointed as the first director of Galactic Sciences. Her job was to share technology freely among all member species, ensuring that no one race could gain dominance through superior weapons. "Knowledge belongs to everyone," she declared. "We will explore the universe together, learn together, and grow together." Captain Morrison became the first admiral of the Alliance fleet, but this was not a force for conquest. It was a force for protection. Their mission was to defend the weak and prevent the rise of any new empire. General Ross established the Alliance Intelligence Service. Their job was not to spy on member species, but to watch for external threats and internal corruption. Never again would a conquering empire be allowed to grow unchecked. Ambassador Carter was elected as the first Secretary General of the Alliance. In her inaugural address, she spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "Today marks the end of the age of empires. No more will the strong prey upon the weak. No more will entire species live in fear of conquest. Today begins the age of cooperation, the age of hope, the age of peace." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for all those who had died during the war. Human and alien, soldier and civilian, they had all paid the price for freedom, but their sacrifice had not been in vain. For the first time in galactic history, every species was free to choose its own destiny. As Captain Morrison walked through the streets of Geneva that evening, he thought about how far humanity had come. 2 years ago, they had been a small, primitive species facing extinction. Now they were the leaders of a galactic alliance. A young girl ran up to him, offering a flower. She was not human. She belonged to one of the liberated species, one of the children who would grow up free because of what humanity had done. "Thank you," she said in broken English. Morrison knelt down and accepted the flower. "Thank you for giving us something worth fighting for." The girl smiled and ran back to her parents. Morrison watched her go, then looked up at the stars. Somewhere, out there, billions of beings were living free lives because a small, stubborn species had refused to surrender. They had laughed at Earth's defiance. They had mocked humanity's determination. They had dismissed human courage as primitive foolishness. They were not laughing anymore. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun, and it had all started with 8 simple words. "We choose freedom over slavery." Every time